with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund program at EPA. And I wanted to thank you for having me here today to talk to you about how this funding source can be used to fund abandoned mine remediation projects. How many of you have heard of the Clean Water State Revolving Fund? Okay, there's a couple here. So hopefully you'll come away from this presentation, most of you learning something new that you may want to explore in the future. So I wanted to start by giving a little bit of history about the Clean Water SRF. Prior to 1990, EPA funded wastewater infrastructure projects through direct federal grants, called the Construction Grants Program. This was a very successful program, but it did not allow for states to have a lot of flexibility in where the money was going. And it also didn't provide for a permanent source of funding for these types of projects. So in 1987, the Clean Water Act was amended, and the Clean Water State Revolving Fund was created. And this marked a shift from a direct federal grant program to a state loan program. So it gave that flexibility to the states to allow them to direct the funding to the water quality needs in their state. And also, due to the revolving nature of the program, it provided a source of funding in perpetuity. It also shifted the types of projects, or added to really the types of projects that were eligible for assistance. Previously, we were only funding wastewater treatment plant type of projects with the Construction Grants Program. And then with the creation of the State Revolving Fund, it opened the door to non-point source projects as well as estuary projects as well. So what is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund? Very simply, it's an environmental bank. It's a low-cost source of funding for a wide range of water quality projects. And the way the program works is that each year, EPA gives a grant to each of the state programs. The states contribute a 20% match, and these funds are then loaned out to eligible assistance recipients for eligible projects. And as the loans are repaid, the money is recycled back into the fund to provide assistance to additional projects. The program operates in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. And it's a state-managed program, so the states have a lot of flexibility in setting the terms of the loan. So states are able to set interest rates anywhere from 0% to market rate. Repayment periods can go all the way up to 30 years, and it's the states that select the projects that are funded. So they're able to really direct the money in their state to the greatest water quality needs. To give you a feel for the size of the program, over the life of the program, we've provided over $133 billion in assistance to projects. Over the last 3 years, the average annual assistance provided has been around $7 billion. And the majority of this funding has gone to traditional wastewater infrastructure projects, advanced treatment, secondary treatment, CSO correction, that sort of thing. But we do have funding available to go towards non-point source projects, including projects related to abandoned mine remediation. So who is eligible to receive this assistance? It varies based on the project type as well as state by state. So because these are state-managed programs, the states have their own individual rules and regulations about how their programs are implemented within the larger federal framework. So states can make the determination that they only are able to provide assistance to certain types of borrowers. But from a federal perspective, we can provide assistance to municipalities, to county governments, to state agencies, as well as community groups, nonprofit organizations, and even in some cases, private industry. So we have 12 statutory project eligibilities, and within those eligibilities, we're able to fund a wide variety of project types, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But I did want to mention that the SRF can fund capital projects as well as planning and design. We can also fund studies where there's a reasonable expectation that it would lead to a capital project, but we cannot fund ongoing operation and maintenance activities or ambient water quality monitoring. So those 12 statutory project eligibilities allow us to fund a wide variety of project types, including centralized wastewater treatment, decentralized wastewater treatment. We can fund green infrastructure, stormwater management, energy efficiency, water efficiency, and projects related to the water quality aspects of resource extraction. So we can fund projects, the water quality aspects of projects to remediate or prevent contamination from resource extraction. These types of projects would include the treatment of drainage, prevention of aquifer contamination, removal of mine tailings, and runoff control projects. So we haven't done a whole lot of these types of projects in the program. So I said earlier that we have provided over the life of the program $133 billion in assistance. When you look at what we've done in terms of these resource extraction projects, it's just around $29 million. And there's only 4 states that have ever funded these types of projects. And so I think there's a couple of reasons for this. One being that I mean, just judging here, when I asked who had heard of the Clean Water SRF, I don't think that folks know that this is a source of funding for these type of projects. So hopefully we can start to spread the word that this is an available funding source. Second, the folks that are undertaking these type of projects don't necessarily want a loan. It's a loan program, it's not a grant program. There's not always a source of revenue to repay a loan for these type of projects in the same way that you can repay a loan for a wastewater treatment plant project where they have user charges that they can use. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So I'd like to talk about the cost savings that are available from the low interest rates that we offer through the Clean Water SRF program. So we talk about it in terms of a grant equivalent. So the low interest rates that you get from the SRF is equivalent to receiving a partial grant as well as a loan at the market rate. So in this example here, if a community was to get they had a $100,000 project, the market rate, interest rate is 7%, and you went to the SRF, you got a 3% loan for $100,000. That's equivalent to getting a $29,000 grant and a $71,000 loan at market rate. So there are substantial savings to be had. In this example, we're looking at a 7% market rate. In this economic climate, the market rate isn't 7%, it's probably closer to maybe 4%. And SRF rates, the average interest rate for SRFs last year, I think, was between 1% and 2%, probably closer to 2%. But you can still see in this chart that there's still a 17% savings there. The other issue I briefly mentioned was that there's not necessarily a revenue stream to repay the loan. So even if you are getting these great savings, you still have to repay a loan. And you don't have user charges to do so. But there's a lot of flexibility in the SRF with what revenue sources you could use to repay the loan. We've had borrowers use revenue from hunting and fishing licenses, from homeowners association fees. We even had a borrower who sold carbon credits and was able to repay the loan using that revenue. So there's a lot of flexibility, and we encourage people to think creatively about how you might be able to find a revenue stream to repay a loan, and to work with your SRF program to see what you might be able to figure out. I also wanted to mention that we do have a provision in the program to provide what we call additional subsidization. And this is a small amount of money that the SRFs are able to provide in the form of principal forgiveness or grants. Generally, this money is used for affordability reasons, but there's also some of the states use the additional subsidization to incentivize certain project types. So it's important to talk to the SRF to see if this type of assistance might be available, and it might just help to make getting an SRF loan, if you get a little bit of the subsidy, it might help to make it a little bit more affordable. We also, the SRFs have been really creative over the years in trying to figure out how to fund projects that don't necessarily have a revenue stream to repay the loan. So we have a little bit of subsidy. We can be flexible about the repayment options, but sometimes it's just really hard for a community or a watershed group to take on the loan. And so one state came up with this idea. It's been adopted by a number of other states called sponsorship lending. And that's where we pair a traditional wastewater infrastructure project at a publicly owned treatment works with a non-point source type of project, such as a remediation of an abandoned mine. And so they put these two projects together into one loan agreement. And we can switch to the next slide. They're all sort of related here. And the wastewater utility agrees to take on this non-point source loan, add it in as non-point source project, and add the cost into their loan in exchange for a reduced interest rate. The next slide shows sort of an example. It might be hard to see here, but the reduced interest rate, the savings from that interest rate, make it so that the utility over the life of the loan pays back the same amount or less than they would have paid if they had not taken on and sponsored this non-point source project. So in this example here, there's a utility that had $1 million project that they came to the SRF for. If they had just borrowed $1 million at a 3.8% interest rate, in this case, that the SRF was offering, then they would have paid back $1.4 million over the life of the loan. Underneath that, you can see that they agreed to sponsor, they had their $1 million project, but they agreed to sponsor an almost $400,000 non-point source project. So their total loan amount is $1,393,000, but their interest rate was reduced to just 0.3%. So with this interest rate reduction, they're still paying back the $1.4 million over the life of the loan. So it's not costing them anything more to get both their project at the wastewater utility as well as the non-point source project funded. Now, not every state does this, but it is an option in some states, and it's worth talking to your state SRF about if it's something that you'd be interested in possibly doing. They may be willing to work with some of the utilities in the state to see if they'd be willing to do something like this, sponsor the project. Finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about a real-life example. The Colorado SRF has funded these types of abandoned mine remediation projects in a couple of different ways, both through a loan through the SRF as well as through grants. So first, I just wanted to talk about the loan a little bit. Back in, I think it was around 2005, they made a $4.3 million loan to Breckenridge for abandoned mine site remediation and construction of a runoff treatment plant, as well as the purchase of land for conservation. This was an $11 million project, so there was funding that came from other sources, and there was some grant funding that went into this as well. But they did use the SRF loan. There was a stakeholder group that was working with Breckenridge, and the Colorado SRF could only loan to public entities. So Breckenridge was willing to take on the loan, and they were able to use, I believe, sales tax revenue to repay the loan in the end. They have not done any other SRF loans for these types of projects, but they have provided some grant funding. SRFs can charge on top of the interest rate that they charge. They can also charge what we call fees. And this fee money can be used in many different ways to implement the Clean Water Act. And one of the ways that some states do this is by using that fee money to offer grants for particular project types. And that's what was done in Colorado, using SRF fee money as well as the money from the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Sea. And so those are just two examples of ways this has actually happened. In real life, there's been some other examples in Pennsylvania and a couple of other states as well. But I felt like this was a more local example. And that's all I had. I'm going to stop there. But if anyone has questions about our program, I'm happy to answer them.
Not so much a question, but a comment that the last part you talked about the grants that went to the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety. They use some of that money to do maintenance on 319 projects in this water.
Okay. Any other questions?
Talk to them about something else, and they said they didn't have time. It's all very much prioritized these days. And if you have a disadvantaged business or a disadvantaged community, it's a chance to give them.
So the SRF is managed through the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. And I can give you the contact information. Michael Beck is the person that you would contact. Okay. Yeah, there is. I mean, there is competition for the money, and the figures I was stating are nationwide. So each state has different resources. Yeah. So the most important thing, though, to get on the eligibility list is to talk with the SRF and find out what the application process is, and get your project, get an application submitted to get on that list and be considered for funding. So there is a priority ranking system that the projects have to go through, and it is competitive. Some states are funds limited and don't have more money than they have projects coming in. Other states are projects limited. And there's not as much money to go around. So, yeah.
What are some of the exciting partnerships that you've seen utilize this fund? You gave us some Colorado examples. Are there other examples of interesting pairings? I thought the interest sponsorship thing was really fascinating. Thank you for that example.
So in terms of, so I talked about sponsorship, which is one of the innovative financing mechanisms that we use in the SRF. Another one that is used often is, I don't know quite how innovative necessarily is, but just pass-through lending and using an intermediary to take on the SRF loan and then sometimes pass it through as grant funding or pass it through as a smaller loan to watershed groups or communities. So usually we see this with like the centralized wastewater treatment systems, where a state Department of Health or a county government might take on an SRF loan. They have a way to repay the loan, usually, and then they'll pass it on as grant funding to in this case, individual households. So that's another way that the SRF has been able to reach smaller borrowers who might not be as comfortable coming to the SRF, or the SRF may not have the capacity to work with us closely by having that intermediary agency in touch there. I should also mention that the SRF can be used as a source of match for non-point source grant funding. So we've seen this before as well. When you receive a non-point source grant, there's match required, and you could go to the SRF to get a loan for the match. There's also, it can also be used as match for other grant programs as well.
Quick question on that. You said it could be used for match, because generally you can't use federal funds for matching.
Yes, that's a really good point. So the SRFs, because they are state managed programs, they do receive a federal grant, but that money is loaned out, and when it gets recycled back into the fund, it loses its federal designation, it becomes state money. And then they can use the recycled funds to do the match.
Great. Any other questions? Well, thank Kelly. She came all the way out from DC for this presentation, her first time in the area and on the roads. So, anyway,